I'm just gonna get right into the video because, bro, I had to restart it because it didn't pick up no audio yesterday.
A murder that has become one of the most discussed crime cases of recent times is that of David Anthony Burke, who went by the stage name David. David was at the peak of his career. He dropped a high-charting debut album.
The very peak of his career, y'all. Like,
no, it's not the behavior itself that's necessarily significant, but the pattern it establishes. That authority is to be managed through concealment rather than confronted directly. This pattern would then reoccur later for his adult life. It didn't help David that his private school life in New York also consisted of bullying and teachers picking on him, so he had an uneasy time both at school and at home.
I hated New York at that point. Like,
why did you
I didn't
hate
like
it?
my school. I was at a
'Cause
private
you said-
school, and they treated me so horribly.
I mean, he
It was
grew up in
insane.
New York.
I don't know. All the teachers had it out for me. My little brother could testify to that too. Dude, they just had it out for me all the time. I don't know what it was. I would just
and
do
now,
nothing.
ever since you went to jail, your little brother's making music. I think it's I don't know. I'm not gonna say that about the nigga because I don't know him. Don't fall into your big brother's footsteps, bro. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep making your music. You got haters just because people are gonna hate on you because your brother is David.
To nobody, and the teachers would just pick on me and bully me for no reason, bro. I wanted to leave that place.
So if
so
I was
bad.
you, nigga, I would build me an underground fort, nigga. You might want to stay in the You might want to stay in there, boy.
And he got his wish as they moved to Houston, Texas, and he found it slightly better at his new school. But he was a kid that didn't really seem to find anything that stuck. His parents tried to get him into music, but it wasn't stimulating enough for him at that time.
She put me into piano lessons when I was 7, and then I quit that after a week. She was like, okay, I'm not gonna pay for it if you don't like it. Quit that. I went into she put me in a church choir when I was 8. Quit that. And then I was in middle school band when I was in 7th grade. I played the flute, and I quit that.
But he never developed into a conventionally social
What up, boy?
child. He describes himself as a people watcher rather than a member of a friend group, sitting apart in cafeteria settings and constructing fictional narratives around classmates that they were unaware of.
At school, before I was
Oh, boy,
homeschooled, like
Echo,
middle
man.
school,
My little
elementary,
Husker,
I would
man.
look at these kids, like at cafeteria, at lunch was like my playground, like my brain's playground. Like there's so many different kids, and they're all doing something different.
Look what he's about to say right here, y'all. Like, I seen this part, but it just didn't capture. Look at this part.
I would just sit there and I'm a people watcher. I would just inspect them and like write about them and stuff like that. And I kind of brought these characters to life that were inspired by my classmates. So every time I would write like a short story, I'd have these different classmates in these stories, and they would never know. It's like different names and everything, but they were inspired by my classmates.
This preference to observe people and create these stories was an early marker that he had an
I
actual
don't
tendency to see people
know.
as subjects for analysis
I don't
rather than reciprocal
know.
social partners. Combined with his bullying in New York, it suggests he felt more inclined to exist on the edge of social bubbles
What was he doing? Streaming Fortnite or something back then?
rather than in them, present but not integrated, watching but not connecting. He says he began writing poetry in the 5th grade and pursued anime, gaming, and creative fiction from a young age.
Yeah, ever since I was young, I really just liked anime, gaming, and poetry. That's it. I remember reading my first manga when I was in 5th grade. Dragon Ball, Tokyo Ghoul, and see these fantasy
He knows ball.
characters with powers and all that. That
But you're
weren't
never gonna read these things again, bro. You're never gonna enjoy your life again, bro. Look what you done did, bro. Like, this is actually insane, bro. Like, we started off from listening to you, cool and all. That's straight or whatever. Why you do her like that? Why you even messing around with a little girl anyway?
and that inspired me to start writing and write my own stories about
Like,
it.
David, I
But
like
just in case his parents couldn't give him any more reason to resent them, they took him out of public school, the only place he was getting any sort of socialization, the place where he was letting his imagination run wild, and they instead placed him on an isolated homeschool curriculum.
Transitioning from public school to homeschool was tragic. The first 2 years was tragic. Like,
Tragic.
I was asking to go back to school almost every day. My brother too.
Was the decision to move from public schooling to homeschooling a difficult one?
It was, and it wasn't mine, it was my parents.
So there's 2 different types of homeschooling in America. There's like group homeschooling, where it's parents that don't want their kids to be in public school environments, but they still want them to be in social groups. So they have you have homeschool kids that meet once a week at a specific place, and they play like extracurricular activities like basketball and stuff like that, so they can socialize, and they do the work on paper. And then there's a second homeschooling where it's just strictly on computer. That's what I did.
We dead ass right now.
They didn't let him enroll on the socialized model involving group meetings with peers, but a fully computer-based, home-based program with no structured peer contact whatsoever. From a developmental psychology standpoint, this is the most significant single environmental factor in his profile. Erikson's 8th stage model identifies adolescents, approximately 12 to 18 years old, as the critical period for identity versus role confusion. The developmental task of forming a stable, coherent sense of self through peer interaction, social experimentation, group belonging, and the feedback of others. Removing a child from that process during its peak window doesn't simply slow development, it redirects it, and they don't develop normally. And the main
damn, man, David, man.
damage that came from that cutoff was socializing. None of his
in the back of my mind, you died. Nah, let me stop, bro. I ain't gonna lie, that shit was a banger back then, gang. That shit was a banger. You know that one song that nigga was like, what is that song? It was a TikTok song. That motherfucker was like, fuck. I don't think of it.
And he was all alone.
I thought I had a lot of friends in middle school. And then after being homeschooled, nobody's hitting me up. Nobody's asking me, like, where am I at? Why am I not coming to school today? It made me question, like, what is a real friend? And do I have any of those as well?
Especially when I was transitioning from...
You was on stage with SZA. You made a song with Kelly.
Speaking everybody. My snap score was like 250,000, bro.
And nobody hits you back?
Nobody, dude.
What the?
That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody... Like, who, you not at school? Where'd you go, Dave? Like, nobody... Like, did I really have friends? And you start to question things.
Oh,
like,
totally.
About your everyday life. It's like, who's really there for you at the end? I mean, dude, homeschooling really takes a toll on a kid. Like,
isolation.
Yeah, and there's outlets like, I know I made a couple friends now that were homeschooled, but they had like these groups that they would go to like bi-weekly and just to socialize. But I didn't have that. Like,
David would start to feel a growing disconnect between himself and his age mates, and an acute awareness of experiences that he was excluded from. I've gone through his TikTok, and this was clearly what hit him hardest. He was emotional seeing homeschool proposals. He has another post titled, What It Felt Like to Be a Homeschool Teen, and I won't play the audio for copyright reasons, but the lyrics go, everybody's falling in love and I'm falling behind, as he visibly shows his frustration at that fact. He missed out on having high school relationships, but had to watch everyone else get to have one through Snapchat. His former peers got to post relationship quotes and pictures with their partner, whilst he stayed at home, unable to do anything but watch. As the caption says, homeschool and being on social media 24/7 was not a good mix. In another post, he says his superpower is never being able to express my feelings properly because I was homeschooled and had no social life for 5 years. And on another, he says, I was homeschooled all my life. I never got to experience any school dances. When adolescents are denied normal peer socialization, the need for connection and belonging doesn't disappear. It finds alternative channels. In David's case, that channel was the internet, specifically Fortnite, YouTube, Discord, TikTok, and eventually music. During his homeschooled years, David describes Fortnite as his primary social environment. He engaged in squad fills, which is where you're allowed to join games with strangers and talk to them if you have a headset and mic. And he allowed people to vent their personal problems to him.
Especially being homeschooled and not having a social life, right? So I'm on the game, I'm talking to all these random people, and they're talking to me about their life problems, you know, using video games to escape the real world as much as I am, and then living my life vicariously through them, and like writing songs about their lives.
Yeah.
I would go on Discord, and I would go on Fortnite, and I would go on like squad fills, and I just let people talk to me and just tell me about their lives. Because like most of these people that play video games the same way I do, they're going to it as an escape. So I was just being an open door and an open outlet for like my peers and my friends to kind of just like vent to me about different things in their like personal lives and stuff like that. And I'm like 15, 14 at this time, so I don't know how to like be a therapist, right? But it's like I'm taking this information and all these different people talking to me about different like problems and situations. I'm like, wow, this is really what humans are like. Like, these are humans.
The fact he says, wow, so this is what humans are like, these are humans, tells me that this was the only way David was understanding human psychology at that time. This is a clinically unusual developmental pathway. Normally, an adolescent's model of human behavior is built through direct, embodied, reciprocal experience, like friendship, conflict, romantic experience, loss, etc. But David built his model of human psychology through a parasocial and semi-anonymous listening role, absorbing other people's problems through a gaming headset. This produces a specific kind of social intelligence,
Oh, bro, close
highly
your-
observational, empathically competent on an intellectual level, but fundamentally disembodied. He understands humans like a researcher understands subjects, not as a participant understands his peers. And that's going to be significant when evaluating his later relational behavior.
When playing games on PC, do you ever wonder if someone had a clip with you in it?
I was just locked in right there. Hold on.
Clips are
'Cause
in.
that's actually insane.
So he was chronically online, seemingly addicted to video games, but being home alone that much allowed him to stumble across much worse vices. Later, in his own Discord server, David disclosed a sustained pattern of consuming gore content beginning at approximately
I use it to desensitize myself. I saw Cartel Execution already when I was 14. Okay, so the thing about cartel videos, when I first seen a cartel video, bro, I was so fucking traumatized, bro. That shit like did something to my mind.
14 years old,
I was thinking about it so much to the point I was crying. That's weird.
following the accidental exposure to a cartel execution video. Gore is real-world violence and injury.
Like, bro, real life, like
Fully
ill.
uncensored, including death and murder, and he
Oh.
was discovering that and watching it repeatedly at 14 years old. He describes a progression from initial shock response to habituation, saying, "It got to the point where I don't even cringe when I see it anymore," to then developing a dissociative response, claiming he started laughing at one point, but then escalated to deliberate intentional use. I watch gore
That is insanely disgusting.
to disconnect the part of my brain that feels empathy to the wrong things. We have something called an amygdala, which generates the brain's threat and disgust response to violence. Repeated exposure to graphic stimuli triggers habituation and desensitization. In simpler words, the threshold for what makes the brain want to cringe and look away rises because the stimulus is no longer threatening due to seeing it so much. What David describes in his Discord is consistent with this process in adolescence, whose prefrontal regulatory systems are still maturing and therefore less equipped to contextualize and contain the desensitizing effect. But what distinguishes David's disclosure from typical adolescent experimentation is that last part. He doesn't describe watching gore for entertainment or shock value. He describes it as an emotional engineering exercise, a deliberate attempt to modify his own empathic response. This level of intentionality about emotional desensitization in a 14-year-old is far from typical and represents a significant clinical signal. This would have been a major warning sign and red flag that David was gaining the ability to care less about human life. During that same isolated period, David developed an elaborate alter ego he called Itami, a Japanese word meaning pain.
I have this alter ego named Atami, which means pain in Japanese, and I'm heavily inspired by like anime and stuff like that. But that character that's in the music videos I make now was actually an idea that I had years before music even started, when I was writing my first comic book. And it was this detective that would solve his own crime. So he was the good guy by day, and then at night he'd kind of transform into this alter ego and then commit crimes he'd solved the morning of.
But Itami isn't this artistic creative concept he's come up with. David described it in multiple interviews as a character he intended to develop into his own manga, one who was explicitly him, a detective who committed murders and then investigated them himself.
Big part of that manga was an evil version of me, an agent of chaos, and kind of my alter ego. And there was an evil
Guys, we're gonna
version.
finish the second half of this video. I just gotta say, it's crazy about what this guy has done. 20 minutes into the video. I love you all. We'll get right back to it.